Hello again, I'm Stephen Jerome, and I'm going to continue reading from my third novel, The London Year. We are at part 36. With the cold came winter wardrobes, and Harrods' wealthy customers put on a show. I'd never seen so many spectacular fur coats in my life, especially on the Italians. Add the pricey kid gloves and 1,000-pound knee-high boots, and there really was no question that this was how the other half actually lived. From a fashion perspective, England's masses were a pretty dreary lot. America, in general, took casual to a new low. All of my school clothes growing up came from J.C. Penney's or Sears. In temperate Southern California, I had had no exposure to the world of seasonal styles, least of all a vocabulary in designer brands. Levi's, Lee, and Hang Ten were the extent of my label awareness. That all changed at Harrods. I began to understand the fuss about fashion, and particularly the difference between fashion and style. It wasn't just about status symbol brands, which anyone with money could buy. It was also about beautifully made garments and how they could define one's personal persona. Designer names began to appear on the outside of clothes for the very first time. Christian Dior had a coat entirely embroidered with its ornate CD signature, which I thought verged on crass. Gucci evolved from its simple green and red stripe to announcing Gucci on the outside of its handbags. Hermes went from its discreet gold stirrup to putting H's on everything. Crass or not, the trend caught on permanently. I'll never forget one statuesque German woman in her late 30s who came in regularly. One afternoon I saw her walking on the streets of Knightsbridge wearing a billowing overcoat whose deep purple color was so voluptuous, so luxe, and worn so dramatically that she literally turned heads. In this case, no outside label was needed. For those in the know, and I was learning, purple was Valentino's color that season, and it was his to own, tantamount to a signature. On the few women wealthy enough and confident to wear such extravagant luxury and make it look easy, the effect could be breathtaking. But high fashion didn't have to be showy. Harrods' clientele were out shopping, not hitting the red carpet. The best dressed of them were decidedly understated. This was a lesson, too. By contrast, I once saw a gruff, thick-necked man whom I heard speaking Russian, expensively dressed but no less thug-like, leading his plump wife and 3 plump daughters around the store. They, all the ladies, were dressed head to toe in their new Chanel purchases, except it looked like they were in costume. The clothes were wearing them as truly as the expression was ever meant to be. I also learned about style from Gracie. She had it in spades, creating her own self-styled look. Living on a shoestring, as we all were, she had an eye for one-off items she'd find tucked away at little shops on King's Road or the Portobello Flea Market, which she often visited on Saturday. She'd bring home a little jacket, a scarf, blouse, or brooch, none of them designer, then put them all together with original flair. Her wardrobe was literally bulging with interesting clothes, and I rarely saw her wear the same thing twice. This rubbed off on me, and I started wearing scarves, bracelets, sometimes an Italian beret — the French ones are too floppy — to accent my nascent London look. Harrods had its trendy side, too, with the store within the store called Way Inn. It had its own elevator with music to set the stage, going directly from ground level to the 4th floor. It was in that elevator I first heard snippets from Joni Mitchell's then latest Hissing of Summer Lawns album, which would become the soundtrack for my time in London. The Way In was dark and hip, and a world away from the staid ladies' and gentlemen's departments downstairs. It was there I became familiar with the French designer Daniel Hector, whose style I decided suited my own fashion aspirations. There was a particular jacket I pined over, but even with my employee discount, it was way out of reach. The discount did make all the difference at sale time, however, and browsing regularly, I often had first pick. Some items came with an added discount if I let the cheeky Aussie tailor's hands linger as he fitted a pair of trousers. Over time, I would glean from a rolled eye or quiet chuckle that even some straight employees had their limits challenged, deciding how far to let the tailor go, knowing a generous price slashing was literally up for grabs. Okay, I'm going to stop there. We'll continue with part 37 tomorrow. Thank you for watching.